Alright, hello again. This is going to be a quick look at some of the ways that you can work with material rendered in Poser and take that into Dog Waffle. In fact, what I just did here is to open a file. I rendered that in Poser in PNG, another time in Targa, and also in TIFF. Now, the Targa render did not include the alpha channel somehow. I don't know if the version of Poser that I have just doesn't support that. If I go to selection after the import of that file and store alpha, it's just all white, all selected. So there's no mask in the alpha channel that came through that file. And so it's probably just a 24-bit image. So, but that shouldn't be a showstopper. We can look at the TIFF file or the PNG file. Let's take the TIFF, for instance, here. And in either case, what it will do is it looks the same. It's the same render. But I saved it out to, from Poser, I exported it out to TIFF. And so this one I can do a couple of things with to see and verify that I have indeed the alpha channel there. So one thing I can do is store the alpha from the selection menu. And there you can see indeed that there is an alpha channel mask here. So that's perfect. The other thing I can also do is store the image, and that will actually also store the alpha channel with it. So if I store the image copy here, you have a couple of things you can do. If you accidentally delete the image or modify it beyond repair, you can simply click here to restore it. Now that only restores the RGB channels, but you still have the alpha channel there too, so you can replace alpha and you can see that back in place as well. That not only restores it, but it also enables it. So you can have it actually alpha on off. You can turn that off, and that's by default. After loading it in, it didn't turn that on even though it was actually there. So you can see the alpha. Now, one thing I wanted to show you is a couple of ways you can use that to create some sort of cartoonish look to that, right? Because I mean, obviously, once we have the mask, we can do all sorts of things with regard to painting over that. Maybe some of the watercolor brushes that will appear only in here. Right, so as I'm painting over, the mask will contain it. I can use the interactive undo here, or the fade last action, to give it a little bit less or a little bit more of that. And tons of filters. Most of the filters will respect that alpha channel and use it. So you can use a blur, you can use some of the artistic renders, like the brush strokes. You can use that to create all sorts of brushed appearance, and to make it look like you had a paintbrush going through that. A little bit easier to see when we zoom in. You can see here that we got a little bit of a brushed appearance now. But there's other things that you might want to do. Maybe you'd like to clear it and then just give it a little bit of an embossed look to that. And so that's a technique that I want to show also. Under the selection menu, there's an effects submenu for drop shadow, emboss by alpha, and alpha glow. And I want to show you the alpha glow in particular. Let's pick a color, let's say blue for the primary, that's over here. So kind of a bluish, and then something else like reddish or orange for the secondary. That's with the left and the right button, right? Blue with left button, that's the primary color. Right button, you pick the color for the secondary color. So what I'd like to do is now show you what happens if I use that selection and effects alpha glow, right, and apply something there. Let's give it a lot and okay that. So it now has taken, apparently it takes the primary color, blue, and puts that on the inside. So it's an alpha glow. Now let's make sure we have indeed still the same mask as this one here. We can go grab the selection and store that, another copy. Yeah. So if it were on the outside, we would just have to invert it, right? And for instance, if I wanted to actually invert it, replace it. So now I have the selection on the outside, and if I do that glow effect once more, there you go, alpha glow, and this time perhaps a little bit tighter. It will have it applied to the outside, just a tiny little bit. And in fact, if you want, you can switch the colors between primary and secondary. Let's go do that, undo, and switch the colors right there. And so now I have the orange in the primary color, and if I apply selection, effects, alpha glow, and perhaps a little bit more, now I get a little bit of a reddish glow around it and a bluish glow on the inside. But the key thing that I wanted to show you, let's replace the mask here that we had originally. The key thing I wanted to show you is that you can use that to create kind of an outlined render, perhaps with a lot of that. Let's go with a reddish all over. So let's clear, and not clear to blue, let's clear to white, right? Oh, and again, clear everything to white. So I guess what I'll do is I'll set the secondary color to white and then clear everything. That way it will bypass the selection mask in effect here. And so now I'm going to go with the reddish glow on the inside, and I'm going to go all the way up to the max here, or close enough. And so what that does is it gives me kind of a reddish border glow, and then you can apply all sorts of. Let's grab a snapshot of that. That's probably going to be something we may want to get back to. So let's store that. And here's a snapshot. And so now we want to go and perhaps go to the filters with the artistic graphic pen. Right, so here's the graphic pen. You can set the pen size a little bit lower. You can set the stroke density a little bit lower. You can set the stroke length higher. And also it could be left or right slanted. And then there's also crosshatch, where it does it both. All sorts of effects here to try. Hard crosshatch. Let's see, the stipple. So now that one's barely visible. Add some color, still not visible. Increase the pen size here. There you go. That will get it to perhaps the level you want. Reduce the density if there's too many of them. Use the color to get a little bit of that reddish glow still to show through there. Stroke length won't make a difference. That's a stipple case here. Let's do another one, pointiest. That one also not perhaps higher density. Ooh, that one's interesting. Yeah, look at that. So lots of things to explore here. Let's see the scribble. Oh, I love some of the scribbles. Now some of these can take a long time. You got to be careful not to start with too much of a density or too high a pen size. So reduce those initially, especially the density. Go down to very low. So now look at that. I'm going to reduce or increase the stroke length and set the size a little bit higher. Without color, you get a nice, interesting looking black, almost like sediment lines there. Scribble is that, and then there's also the crayons, and that also has some great merits. I mean, it's just very interesting different looks that you can get with that filter, just this one filter. And certainly I encourage you to explore that and see if you can put that into some good looking cartoon renders. Let's go back to the one that really started it all, which was, I think, the crosshatch pretty much. Let's see, that's the stroke length. Let's keep it high. Let's reduce the size of the strokes with the brush if you want the pen size. And then density. There you go. Let's keep it something like this. And kill the alpha channel. Control D. Right, and you go. All right. So I mean, sometimes you still want some sort of an outline also. So how do you do that with the alpha channel? Let's go replace that. What you do is you expand it a little bit and then subtract that expansion from this one, or expand it and subtract this one from the expansion. So you basically have just a 1 pixel or 2 pixel border all around it, right, on the selection mask. Let's visualize this a little bit better, just in case you can't see those marching ants. Let's go overlay alpha so we can see that. All right, and let me zoom in perhaps on those fingers in that area here. Okay, so what I'd like to do is make it a little bit smaller and a little bit bigger at the same time. So it's going to be sequential. Let's first of all go to the selection mask and shrink the alpha. So it goes in by just 1 pixel. You can see it made it a little bit tighter, and I'm going to store that alpha. So store alpha, there it is. That's the one that's a little bit tighter. Then I'm going to go back to the original, so replace this, go back to the original, and I could use these two. I could use this one and the tighter one, but I'm also going to actually, in this case, expand it a little bit more. Selection, grow alpha. So now I'm going to go 1 out, and it's got a little bit wider. And I'm going to store that as well, just so I have a safe copy of the two. So that would be another store alpha right there. So now I have the tighter version here, and I have the expanded version here. and I can take the expanded version, load it in, and I can subtract the tighter version, which is sharing the inside but doesn't grow out as much. So I subtract that. So now I have a band of what's the difference. The difference between the expanded and the shrunk version. So I have just a very narrow 2 units, 2 pixel region where the alpha is still selected. And you can erase that to any color you want. Let's go get rid of the pink overlay mode and just erase it to, let's say, black. Or let's say we want to erase it to that same red, which is the primary color here. So we right click on our erase tool and select primary, erase to primary, and it erases it just in here. You can do that perhaps 2-3 times because the alpha channel may block it from being completely erased. You know, it acts as a weight factor or as a filter. So you could also do that with black, right, to make it even stronger. And then if it's too strong, as you can see here, perhaps you can go and do a interactive undo, and we're pretty much done. So we can clear that up, and now make sure we store that also. And there we go. So we have the original 3D render here, whether that's in Carrara or Poser or DAZ Studio, whatever you use for your 3D render initially. It might even be a photograph. But of course, in a photograph, it would be difficult to have that selection mask. You would have to first create that. But there it is. That's the idea of, now let's go and clear the selection and put this guy here. And this one we can size it up to a certain limit, big enough to really see the details, but that's the thumbnail essentially, the save copy. And there we go, another look at how that was done. Alright, thanks for watching, I hope this was useful, and we'll see you soon in another video with PD Pro Howler or PD Artist.